Want to know the best way to navigate Lisbon's steep hills, or how to use the various transport options on offer? You're in luck. That's what we're going to cover in this video. Welcome to Rob on Holiday. In this video, we're going to cover the various transport options in Lisbon. We're going to cover how to get to each of the major sites, the different types of tickets you can use in these journeys, and finally, how to use the tickets when you actually take these journeys. So, with that introduction, let's get started.
Before we delve into the specifics of using public transport in Lisbon, I think it's important to outline the city's geography. And that's because in Lisbon, the main attractions are spread out across 4 main areas, each of which is several miles away from the others. There's the historic centre, where you'll find the Castelo de São Jorge, the Praça do Comércio and the Santa Justa lift. The Belém area, where you'll find the Belém Tower, the Monument of the Discoveries and the Jeronimus Monastery. The Expo 98 area, where you'll find the Parque de Nachos and the Oceanarium. And finally the Cristo Rei, which is across the River Tagus in the Almada district. As you can see, you will need to use some form of transportation to travel between the different areas of Lisbon. And if you're not a big fan of hills, you'll probably also need transport to navigate the historic centre itself.
Now let's talk about the different ticket types that you can use for transport in Lisbon. First of all, you've got the single journey option. Secondly, you've got the 24-hour travel card. And thirdly, you've got the Lisboa card.
Single tickets range from €1.80 to €3.80, depending on the type of transport you take. 24-hour transport tickets cost €6.80 and include unlimited journeys on metros, trams, buses and funiculars in Lisbon and the surrounding area. So, doing the maths, for most people, the 24-hour ticket is going to be worth it. To use single tickets and 24-hour transport tickets, you will need to also purchase a Navigante card. The card costs 50 cents and can be bought from the kiosks at metro, train and ferry stations. Once purchased, you can load your card with one type of ticket at a time, and you can continue reloading the same card with tickets throughout your trip. Please note that everyone in your group will need their own Navigante card. If you plan on buying the Lisboa card, this already includes unlimited transportation. Given the Lisboa card also includes free entry to many of Lisbon's most popular attractions, I think that this is the most economical option. Lisboa cards can be bought to cover 24, 48 or 72-hour periods and cost €22, €37 or €46 respectively. Before we get into using transport around the city, I want to first talk a bit about the airport. Lisbon Airport is just 4.3 miles away from the historic centre, and it's also connected to the city's metro system. To get to the metro system and Uber pickup, just head up the stairs to the right after the baggage reclaim and out of the door. The metro station is just outside the door, and the Uber pickup is just past the bus stop and across the road. Now, there are technically 2 terminals at the airport. Most airlines fly in and out of Terminal 1, where all the facilities and transport are found. However, if you're flying on one of these airlines, you'll fly in and out of Terminal 2. We arrived on Ryanair, who fly into Terminal 2. On your way into Lisbon, there isn't a problem because a bus will take you from your plane straight to the arrivals section of Terminal 1. From there you can catch the metro or an Uber to the city centre. However, on your way back home you'll need to head to the departures at Terminal 2. If you take the metro back to the airport, you can transfer over to a bus and get back to Terminal 2. But we decided to skip this step and just take an Uber, since this can drop you right off at the door of Terminal 2.
Now we're going to look at the different types of transport that we used in Lisbon. And being honest, there was a bit of a mixed experience. Some we found fantastic, others were a bit laborious and just didn't work for us.
Let's start with the metro. The metro is the fastest and easiest way to get from the airport to the city centre. The red line takes you from the airport to Almeida station, where you can transfer to the green line for the historic centre. The red line also serves the Expo 98 area, making it the most convenient way to get to the Lisbon Oceanarium. The nearest stop to the Oceanarium is Oriente. To use the metro, simply present your ticket at the turnstiles on the way in and out of each station. Next up is the bus. Lisbon's bus network is extensive, so you can get to most places using this form of transport. And, while it might not be the most interesting way to travel, we found it to be the second most efficient after the metro. For us, the 2 most useful bus routes were the 728 and the 737. The 728 runs from Praça do Comércio to the Geronimus Monastery in Belém. While people traditionally take a tram over to Belém, I much preferred taking the bus as it only took 20 minutes and wasn't overcrowded with tourists. If you want to visit the Castelo de São Jorge, you can take the 737 bus from either the Praça da Figueira or outside Lisbon Cathedral to the castle entrance, helping you avoid a steep walk uphill. This is the only form of public transport that can take you right up to the castle entrance, so it's definitely your best option. To use the buses, just tap your transport card at the machine in the front of the bus as you board. We also found the Elevadores very useful on our trip. Lisbon's Elevadores are literal lifts located throughout the historic centre that take you up several stories to avoid climbing a steep hill. For the most part, these lifts are free to use. We used the Elevador near the Praça do Comércio to get up to Lisbon Cathedral and found it a very handy addition to the transport network. One thing to bear in mind is that the most famous Elevador, the Santa Justa lift, is a popular tourist attraction in itself and costs more than your average mode of transport. A return ticket for the Santa Justa lift costs €5.30, but it is included on the Lisboa card. Now let's talk about the forms of transport that we wouldn't recommend. First, there's the trams. There are actually two types of trams operating in Lisbon. There are the small historic trams and the modern trams. Modern tram number 15 is an option for getting to Belém, but it takes 45 minutes, so the bus is far more efficient. Plus, our tram broke down and we ended up stranded in the middle of the route. And as for the historic trams, while they are pretty to look at from the outside, riding them is not a pleasant experience. These trams have become a tourist trap and you will often have to wait for several trams before there is room for you to board, and even then you'll probably be standing up. This is particularly a problem for the 28 tram, the most famous of all the tram routes in Lisbon. If you really want to ride the 28 tram, I recommend riding early in the morning and boarding at the first stop, which is the Praça Martim Moniz. Lisbon's funiculars are another tourist trap. There are three main funiculars in the historic centre: the Funicular de Bica, the Funicular de Gloria and the Funicular do Lavra. We rode the Funicular de Gloria and suffered from the same problems as the trams. There is hardly any room on board and most passengers end up standing, squashed up to the person in front and the person behind. This is particularly a problem because there are very few handrails to hold on to. So in my opinion, you're best just taking photos of the funiculars and trams from the outside rather than riding them. And if you do ride the trams and funiculars, count them as a tourist attraction in their own right rather than an efficient mode of transport. If you do use the funiculars or trams, you can validate your ticket at the machine on the front as you board. We didn't use the trains or ferries while we were in Lisbon, so we can't comment on their efficiency. Using the train is a good way to get to Sintra for a day trip. You can catch the train from either the Oriente or Rossio stations, and it takes approximately 40 minutes to get to Sintra. And the ferry is one option for visiting the Cristo Rei. You can catch a 15-minute ferry from the Cas de Sodré to Casillas and take the 3001 bus to the Cristo Rei. However, I would personally recommend another way to get to the Cristo Rei.
And that would be to use Uber. We used Uber extensively while we were in Lisbon, and it's a really good option, especially for visiting the Cristo Rei, because it's cheap. I mean, €12 from the centre of Lisbon over the bridge to see the Cristo Rei, and obviously the €12 or so back again. It's quite cheap, and there were 4 people. Paying the €12 for the trip was fantastic. You got to drive over the 25th of April suspension bridge. It was an absolutely wonderful experience. You know, visiting the Cristo Rei, you could see it there in the distance as you were approaching it. You look out the side and see the Belém area, just see the bridge towers themselves. So taking an Uber over to the Cristo Rei, for me, it's a no-brainer.
So, let's recap. To use the public transport in Lisbon, you buy single tickets, a 24-hour transport card or the Lisboa card. We recommend using the following modes of transport: the 728 bus to get to Belém, the 737 bus to get to the Castelo de São Jorge, the Elevador de Sé to get to Lisbon Cathedral, the metro to get to Lisbon Oceanarium, the metro to get from the airport to your hotel, and an Uber to get to the Cristo Rei.
So, as we've seen, transport works generally well in Lisbon, but it isn't without its problems, and that's also because of the geography of Lisbon. The main tip I would give you is use lots of resources before your trip, like this channel and other people's channels and other blogs that people write. use those resources to help you plan your trip. You know, what bus are you going to use to get from here to here? When are you going to use the tram? How are you going to use the boat? Things like that. Where will Uber be useful? And if you plan all this in advance, you might change things a little when you get there, but at least you have a good plan of how you're going to get to see all the different sites in Lisbon. So, thanks for watching the video. We hope you enjoyed our transport guide to Lisbon. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. And also, if you enjoyed the video, please subscribe. It really helps our channel. So with that, thanks for watching Rob on Holiday, and we'll see you next time.